It's one of the most widely repeated pieces of natural pest advice on the internet, passed along in comment sections, home remedy blogs, and family group chats for years. Draw a simple line of chalk across a doorway, a windowsill, or a countertop edge, and ants will supposedly refuse to cross it, turning back the moment they encounter the powdery white barrier as though it were an electric fence. It's cheap, it's simple, it requires no chemicals, and it feels like exactly the kind of clever, low-effort household trick that should be true. Millions of people have tried it, and a genuinely large number of them will tell you with complete sincerity that it worked. Here's what the actual science says, and it's considerably more complicated and considerably more interesting than a simple yes or no. The claim traces back most directly to a specific commercial product sold in several Asian markets under names like chalk-based ant repellent sticks, containing not ordinary blackboard chalk, which is typically made of gypsum calcium sulfate, but a specific insecticide, most commonly deltamethrin, a synthetic pyrethroid compound, formulated into a chalk-like solid stick specifically designed to be drawn as a line, with the insecticide itself, not the chalk material, responsible for any genuine deterrent or lethal effect on ants that cross it. This distinction matters enormously, because the product responsible for the original, genuinely documented effectiveness behind this idea was never ordinary household chalk at all, but a specific pesticide product deliberately shaped and marketed to resemble chalk for ease of application. Over time, as this idea spread through informal channels, translated across cultures and simplified into shorter and shorter pieces of shared advice, the critical detail that the effectiveness came from an active pesticide ingredient rather than the chalk material itself was frequently lost entirely, leaving behind a simplified, considerably less accurate version of the claim that chalk itself, any chalk, repels ants. Separate from that product confusion, there's a second, more commonly cited explanation people give for why ordinary blackboard or sidewalk chalk supposedly works: the idea that the calcium carbonate in chalk somehow disrupts or masks the pheromone trails ants rely on for navigation, causing them to become confused and turn back rather than crossing the treated line. This explanation, while intuitively appealing, doesn't hold up well against direct examination of the chemistry actually involved. Calcium carbonate, the primary component of most traditional chalk, is a chemically inert, stable compound with no known properties that would meaningfully interact with, break down, or mask the specific hydrocarbon-based pheromone compounds ants use for trail communication. And researchers who have specifically investigated this claim have found no clear chemical mechanism by which ordinary chalk dust would disrupt pheromone trail chemistry in the way the popular explanation suggests. Additionally, many modern classroom and household chalk products are manufactured primarily from gypsum rather than true calcium carbonate limestone chalk, a further complication for a theory already resting on shaky chemical ground. Given that the primary chemical explanation doesn't hold up well, it's worth examining what's likely actually happening in the cases where people genuinely and sincerely report success. The physical textural disruption is a genuine plausible factor, since a thick layer of loose powdery chalk dust genuinely does create an unstable shifting surface texture that could plausibly interfere with an ant's normal traction and movement, a mechanical disruption rather than a chemical one. The timing of many reported successes likely reflects normal ant behavior rather than the chalk's actual effectiveness, since ant activity along a specific trail naturally fluctuates and can cease once a food source is removed, cleaned, or exhausted, and a homeowner who applies a chalk line around the same time may incorrectly attribute the resulting drop in activity to the chalk itself, a classic case of correlation mistaken for causation. And confirmation bias plays a meaningful role too, since once a person believes a remedy works, they're more likely to notice and remember instances that confirm the pattern while forgetting instances where it failed. Beyond theoretical chemistry and anecdotal explanation, entomology extension offices and university pest management programs have specifically and repeatedly addressed the chalkline claim in their published guidance, generally concluding that ordinary blackboard or sidewalk chalk shows no reliable, consistent deterrent effect on ant trail crossing behavior under controlled observation conditions, with any observed reduction in ant activity more plausibly explained by coincidental timing. Resource removal, or temporary physical disruption of an unstable powdery surface rather than any specific deterrent property inherent to the chalk itself. This distinction between something that sometimes appears to work under uncontrolled home conditions and something that reliably works under controlled testing is critical, and the same pattern shows up across a wide range of commonly repeated pest management folklore, including other DIY ant remedies like cement sealing and hose flooding. Where a method that produces an occasional or superficially plausible result gets repeated widely enough that it becomes accepted common knowledge without anyone verifying the underlying mechanism. Given that the chalkline method doesn't hold up, the genuinely evidence-based approaches are these: Remove the actual attractant rather than attempting to block the path with a barrier, since ants respond to specific resources like food residue, moisture, or structural access, and a colony will simply reroute around an ineffective physical obstruction. Seal genuine entry points rather than drawing a line across an open surface, since caulking small gaps around windows, baseboards, and pipe entries addresses the structural access point directly and is a far more durable solution. Use bait-based treatments for colonies that require more active intervention, since this approach works with the colony's own pheromone-based recruitment and food-sharing behavior rather than attempting to create an artificial barrier. And if you want a natural deterrent with more evidence behind it, diluted vinegar has a clearer, more plausible chemical mechanism, disrupting the actual hydrocarbon-based pheromone trail directly rather than relying on the unsubstantiated calcium carbonate theory. When evaluating the next home remedy you hear about, ask whether there's a clear, specific chemical or physical mechanism proposed, and whether it's actually consistent with the known biology involved. Consider whether the claim might trace back to a specific product or context that's been generalized inaccurately over time, and look for whether the claim has been specifically tested by an agricultural extension office, university entomology department, or similar research-based source rather than relying solely on anecdotal reports. The chalk line drawn across a doorway represents a genuinely understandable, low-cost attempt at a simple solution to a common household frustration, and the fact that it doesn't hold up under closer examination doesn't reflect any failure of judgment on the part of the millions of people who have tried it and believed it worked. It reflects instead just how easily a specific, real product-based observation can drift, through years of informal repetition, into a broader and less accurate version of itself, losing the critical details that originally explained why it worked at all. Understanding the actual mechanisms, pheromone trails, colony structure, moisture attraction, and genuine evidence-based intervention methods offers a considerably more reliable path forward than any single household material, promising a simple universal barrier against a system as adaptable and resilient as an ant colony has repeatedly proven itself to be. Had you heard the chalk line trick before, and did you ever try it yourself? Did it seem to work or not? Tell me about it in the comments below. I read every single one, and sometimes your stories become the subject of the next video. And if you've ever wondered what another small creature quietly living in your home actually knows about your world, I think the next video might surprise you just as much as this one did. Until then, keep watching, keep wondering, and never stop paying attention to the small things.